Hi, and welcome to Tabletop Warden. As you can tell, this is a very special occasion today, not only because we're talking English. I think we're doing an English video in 2 years, roughly something like that, every 2 years, but because we have a very special guest at our side, and that is Carlo from Stats. Carlo, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me on, guys. Yeah, thanks for making the extra special effort to go English just for me.
I think it's quite overdue that you're finally a guest at our channel. I think we know each other for roughly 7 years, something like that at this point, right? So I mean, we haven't talked that much, to be honest, but we were always aware of each other. And back then, we also had this like guild stuff going on, which we're not talking about any longer.
I was just gonna say, yeah, the relationship goes all the way back to when the guild still existed. Yeah,
Exactly.
it's great to have to be on with like guys who have been there since the start. I think
Yeah,
that a lot of people forget like the length that this game's been going on, and some of like that classic like we stand on the shoulders of giants. Like there's a lot of content creators that came and went and no longer are around, and a lot of the
Right.
content that exists now and the tools that exist were built upon the work of people that came before. And it's great that Tabletop Warden is still flying the flag, and been ups and downs. Those there've been periods just as there have been for the site.
yeah,
There's been strong periods, and there's been periods of like
Yeah.
absence where it's not been a priority. But honestly, I think it's really really important that people have been flying the flag for the game for so long and are still around.
yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
It's a shame we never had you on. I didn't realize that. Carl,
Yeah.
Mickey had been on.
I think
I
Mickey was
remember
on
that.
once. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. That was
Yeah.
like a 4 hours podcast then, obviously.
Exactly.
So if I keep this one shorter, then it's always his fault that 20 grand is 6 hours. Yeah, never mind.
Yeah, so also a big shout out to Yannick. I hope you watch this guy, my friend, and Ben from Blitzminis back in the days
Yeah,
were dearly remembered. So, but today we will talk about the Invitational. Carlo, I think the community, if you're not living under a stone and you're playing Song, you know about the Invitational, the perhaps biggest, no, it is the biggest international event in the Song's history. And we want to tackle a couple of questions today we think might interest a lot of people out there. Um, I myself am interested in a couple of answers, to those questions myself. Um, First of all, we would like to know actually, in terms of like players, factions, and stuff like that. You have more insight into everything that is going on behind the curtain. Can you like tell us a little bit about like which factions are played the most at the event? Which countries favor maybe perhaps specific factions or commanders? Do you see like a trend that is coming up for the Invitational?
I think that it's interesting that um, the faction spread at the moment is really balanced. It's really evenly spread across all factions. Uh, Brotherhood are very popular at the moment. I wasn't really sure whether or not they were going to be dominant in terms of numbers, with people being excited by them, or they were going to like lag behind because people hadn't really gotten hold of them yet. I wasn't really sure where that was going to fall, but at the moment they're falling like really solidly into a slot of just there is one of the major big factions. Of course, neutrals lag behind as always, but
what about
yeah,
Boltons?
like yeah, Bolton's. So I'm looking at the graph right here. That obviously everyone else will get to see when the list lock happens. That's when these stats become revealed to everybody else. But the TO, of course, has access to these because they can see the lists before the list lock in case they need to check if anything weird is happening or change anybody's lists. So Boltons and neutrals are both sat at 3%. So that should be
Mm,
three players. There are
mm.
just over 100 players. Each percent is a player. Every player is a percentage point at this point, really. So yeah, it looks like we have three neutral players and three Bolton players. So they're not non-existent, but obviously that's a kind of small slice. But we have such a large selection of factions now that
True.
like like really like every faction's competing just to make it to the 10% attendance, really. And the numbers are really mostly in and around there. I
All
thought it
right.
was actually quite interesting that Brotherhood were the most played faction in February when I looked at the February stats. Like
Oh,
the closest connection that I have now with really like keeping a watch on the meta of what's going on in the game is that I manually run the updates every month for the stats, and I have to go and check that I haven't done something wrong. So I always go and look at a few factions and check that the numbers are coming out correct. And yeah, I was interested to see what the take up of Brotherhood were. They only got added to the site because, of course, they didn't get added to War Council till really late.
right.
They only got added to the site in mid February. So sorry, mid January. So January wasn't really a true reflection of how much they were being played because they only had about half a month of submitted results. But come February, they were the most played faction, and I think off the top of my head, it was like 14% of all games
Hmm.
are played with Brotherhood. So when you've got 11 factions, of course, you know, like the average play rate of each faction should only be about 9%. But yeah,
Right.
I think the take up of Brotherhood's been really strong. I think that's indicative of the fact that they are really strong as a faction, and on top of that, everybody, or like, you know, they're a big fan favorite. A lot of people have been waiting for them. A lot of people have been wanting them for a long time. um it's interesting though that, like, are they still a mini faction? You know, like when you
True.
compare the take up and the play rate and the success of them versus Bolton's, they are diametrically opposed. Boltons are significantly worse performing faction. They're significantly the least played faction. They have the significantly the smallest like unit count. Brotherhood, the most played faction, the most powerful faction. And if you count all the different
Yeah.
Stark units and all the different Baratheon
Exactly.
units that they can pick from, they actually have the biggest unit selection of any faction in the entire game.
Yeah.
So are they mini factions? Well, if they are, mini factions doesn't really mean any one particular thing because they are so different to each other.
Yeah, and I mean, I can imagine that, especially Baratheon and Stark players just pick them up as why not, right? Like
Exactly.
if you find them, I don't know, a little bit cheaper online, you might just as well, get a starter box and then already got quite a bit of toys you can plug in there and play with. And yeah, absolutely, I can see that. While you were talking about like what the percentage means in terms of numbers, let's bring up at least some stats, all the stats that we know. So it's a 100-player tournament. It's actually 103 or something, right, at the moment,
Yeah,
with
I
the
think
active player count.
we managed to negotiate with them that I think we'll have tables for 104. So 104 is the number that I'm trying to reach. Also, because as I've discussed, well, um, the tournament on the Saturday will be split into 4 groups, and inside of each group, the players will play against each other. So ideally, every single group will have an even number of players, which would be 26 in this case for 104 players. Whereas, of course, 100 will break down into 25, and there'd end up being a bye in every single group, or we'd have to adjust the numbers in each group. It all gets a bit complicated, but 104 will be the perfect number. We're currently at 103. I've just had responses in the past few days about people's catering forms. And at first I thought, oh, here we go. Only about 90 people have responded. There's going to be loads of people who aren't actually turning up at the last minute, you know, but it was just people being slow to respond. And I think I've ended up with 102 respondents out of 103. So I'm
Oh,
pretty
that's
confident
awesome.
that 100 plus people are still genuinely going to turn up on the day. I always prepare for, you know, a good 10% of them or so to not come. But yeah, I think what we have with this 103 people is at least 100 people who are really definitely going to be there. All their travel plans are sorted. It's not just somebody who bought a ticket a long time ago and forgot about it.
Yeah. All right. So the thing that I wondered was, why did you decide to do this? Right. So,
I ask myself that a lot too.
what was the inspiration? So at some point
Yeah.
you must have thought, okay, that'll be a cool thing, you know, line up a tournament, invite people from all over the world, and then have this thing going. So I don't know what
Yeah, no.
inspired that.
No, it's a really valid question. Every tournament that I've ever run, I've always tried to run what I think like I wanted as a player. You know, like if I wasn't running this, if I was attending this, what would I want it to be? Is the question that I'm always asking myself. Um, and what I've always felt that the song community was, you know, moving towards and gravitating towards. And what I always hoped that the end goal, end result of the existence of a tool like a Song of Ice and Fire Stats was that you could have a tournament which had what is hopefully like the undisputed kind of like best players in the community all there in person competing. If we don't have a way to measure who are these players by, having records of what tournaments have been played, or we don't have player rankings and all these kind of things, there are multiple different ways that we can say that this player is the best. Of course, like a player is only the best on a given day. You can only beat the players who are in front of you. You can only win against the players that you get a chance to meet. And so there are many different metrics that I kind of put together for like what is the best. Anybody who was able to rise to become a national champion of their own community, no matter what their ranking is or how small their community is, I wanted to be able to invite that player. You may be the national champion of 8 players, or you may be the national champion of 800 players. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you've managed to be the best on the day amongst the whole community that you've met so far. So I want to give you the opportunity to come and meet a bigger community, come and play against even bigger and better players. So basically just bringing together people who play online, people who play, at big events, people who play at small events, everybody who plays the game in any kind of way. And I want to give them a chance to meet and compete in person. And that was, my idea for, effectively, I really think that this game has such a great rule set and a great, terrain, and the way that the game plays and the speed that it plays at. They're all such a perfect match for event play, tournament play, whatever you want to call it. But unlike a lot of tabletop games, I think that it's a perfect pick up and play and meet in person and get the event done really quickly. And the number of rounds that you can play with actual reasonable, time scales, and play these games to completion. And it's not a game that's dominated by a 2-hour setup period, right? Like hopefully we can get onto the table and playing in the first 10, 15 minutes, right? And then we can spend the next hour and a half playing the actual game, making tactical decisions, not an hour to set up the game and play turn round 1 where we just shuffle some things around and nobody's really made a choice yet. So I think that it's such an event based game that for me this is the pinnacle of what an event could be. And what I'm trying to achieve with that is to bring as many people together as possible, and to reward all those who've like built the community to what it is today. So invited for many different reasons, but basically it's those who I feel have contributed to getting the game to where it is today.
Yeah, I think we have exactly like 103 players, 104. It should be 104. And I think we have like 18 different nations, right? That are represented in this tournament. That is amazing.
Yeah. The number of nations changes depending on whether or not a given
Yeah.
player tells. Once upon a time we had 20. I think we are unfortunately down to 18, with a couple of those more further afield players let me know that they won't be able to make it. Unfortunately, some players that right up until the very last minute had visa issues and things like that, or even kind of problems. But yeah, I was so pleased that I've managed to get so many players. When I first imagined the tournament, I did think, wouldn't it be amazing if I could get 50 international players? But we're sat here and it's more than 70. I think it's close to 75% of the entire tournament are international entrants. And I think that that's wonderful, and is really the mold of what I'm trying to say. This is what something like a world championships, maybe a European championships, maybe whatever your regional event, this is what it should look like. It shouldn't be dominated by the local community. Although, of course, like you want to give the ability to attend the event to local players. There are more UK players than there are players from any other event, but they are nowhere near the majority of the players at the event. There are minority of players, are UK players. The majority, overwhelming majority, are internationals. And I think that the overwhelming majority of these players will never have met each other. And I think that is going to be really exciting to see. Really exciting to see how it plays out over the table. I think there's going to be a real test of of some culture clashes, of some mech
Yeah.
clashes, of some rules interpretation clashes,
Oh,
and I
yeah.
think that this is really where everything will get kind of like thrown together into a melting pot, and we'll see what rises to the top, and hopefully we'll all have a great time doing it.
Yeah. So, I mean, how many judges have you lined up then? Speaking of rule clashes.
Yeah. I mean, two. Myself and Chris
Oh,
Eustace
those two poor
have
guys.
always, kind of run as a pair. It's always been okay in the past. The LGT has during its peak year was slightly larger player count. Of course, nowhere near the kind of international count that this is. That worked for us in the past. There weren't that many issues, but yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. I do think that the existence of the community FAQ has actually really helped on that regard. I feel much more liberated that I'm not having to like make a ton of rulings myself. I think that it's great that resource exists and that I can point players to it and say, look, you should be familiar with this before entering the event, rather than, hey, I've made a ruling on everything that I know is weird and I've come up with an answer and you need to go and read it specifically for this event. Hopefully, a lot of these players are well versed in having met each other over TTS, having played in these international communities. And so hopefully I really hope that they're all on the same page on that kind of regard. It's really like the table manners, which actually might be quite different and quite culture clashing for some players. A lot of communities play in very, very different ways, and I think that it's a very important part of the game too.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
just a small advice regarding those judges. Please give them a printout version of the targeting guide from Natal, because I think this is gonna be again something that people will discuss a lot. It always comes up, always, every single time.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, just keep that in mind. But yeah, it's great to hear that you are giving the community FAQ also the attention it kind of needs, because people put a lot of work into that, and as you just said, it puts off a lot of pressure from you, not making up any rulings and stuff like that. Yeah, and on top of that, I wanted to say it's also for us like an honor to attend this event. Like when you said you invited like the 100 best players, I was like, damn, now I kind of feel bad because I'm not that good, so I'm taking like a slot up, but it's a great opportunity to see finally people in real life, after we have talked over the game in so many years, over so many years, and we finally have the chance to meet each other, to shake hands, to play a game, and I'm really, really grateful for that, and I think all the attendees are as well. Yeah. S-
Yeah,
So
I think that I'm just the hope is, it's coming up fast, and I just hope that everyone goes away with an event to remember. Really, I
yeah,
think also at this point, it wasn't the intent when I first put the event together, but at this point, it's also as we're all sort of aware, it's kind of like my goodbye to the community in a lot of ways. I don't intend to run major events after this. I haven't been attending big events, particularly traveling internationally for big events for quite a while now. So, it will be the last time it may be the first time and the last time that I see a lot of these people, but it will be, like a long time coming for a lot of these people that I've been interacting with, working with, speaking to on Discord, and kind of collaborating with for a long time. That it's great for me, and again, it all these events that they run on like what I would like as a player, I would love. I want every player to go away really, really happy and pleased that they came. But they're also there for me. That a lot of the people invited are people that I want to meet and see, and play people that like I've watched for a long time in the community, and really want and think that they deserve to be there.
cool.
Yeah, but
So, maybe a follow-up question. So, when exactly did this idea arise in your head, to come up, to organize an event like that? Was it after the GT? I know in the past you were also like the main organizer of that event, right? Then a couple of things happened behind the curtains. So, when exactly did you make the decision to organize the Invitational?
Yeah, so it's been just over a year and a half. It must have been, I think, kind of November, or even a little bit earlier. It could have been October or September in 2003 that I
Okay.
first started thinking that this was this was going to be a great idea. I'd possibly actually already thought about it in before that, but that was when I started to realistically say to people, could this work? Where might this happen? And that's when I contacted Element Games, who are the venue, the hosts, and they told me that they had no availability throughout the entirety of 2024. That's how booked up and how
wow.
popular a venue they are. So my actual initial plan was that this event would run late 2024. But this weekend in 2025 at the end of March was actually the first and possibly one of only 2 or 3 available dates in all of 2025 that I could pick from. So like I I thought, hey, if I ask them a year in advance, surely they'll have some availability. But turns out that they needed a year and a half to be able to find me a weekend. So it's been hard and to get that availability. And I'm really pleased that we're running at Element. I think that it's definitely the right place to run it. It came out of the back of so in 2023 was actually about the last time that I was playing very competitively.
Mm.
So in 2023, I was actually just coming off the back of um, but easily the most focused I'd been as a player of playing events. So in the UK, we generally speaking have kind of like a Scottish GT, a Welsh GT, and then there was a Northern GT, which
Mhm.
is very local to me. So that's North England, and then there's the LGT, which sort of like crowns them all, brings them all together, and has been UK nationals. So 2023 was the first year that I was playing in the LGT rather than running it, because I always get my dates wrong. But in 2021 and 2022, I think those are the right years. Was when me and Chris Eustace were running it, and then in 2023, I decided to take a step back from running it, and I was playing it. So I'd come off of like really dedicating myself to this idea that I would go to every GT that year. So I traveled to the Scottish GT, I traveled to the Welsh GT, I traveled to the Northern GT, which is just down the road, so not really traveled, but I attended the Northern GT, and then at the end of it, so that was over about a 6-month period, maybe a little bit more or less. I went to the London Grand Tournament. 2 or 3 weeks later, I was supposed to go to Poland and play in the Realms of Battle.
Mm.
That was happening in War Factory, but nature and God decided otherwise, because
Oh.
as I arrived at the airport, a plane crashed
Oh,
in
wow.
a huge
Okay.
storm, and so unfortunately,
Gee,
I couldn't make it. I'd driven all the way to the airport and ended up turning around and coming home. But
that's rough.
so it was off the back of like I'd been traveling to all these events. I'd been really dedicated to like this like very national level circuit, and I had in my mind as a player that I really felt that there needed to be a thing that was another echelon above. Right, like I think that the event in War Factory in Poland was brilliant. I think that the Realms of Battle that they've run is amazing, and I think that was it 180 that
Yeah.
year, possibly even broke 200, 204 at some point or something like that. Like really, really big numbers. But that is overwhelmingly Polish players. Its international presence was decent, but I personally just didn't feel that it was really a European Championships. What it was to me was it was Polish nationals, which had grown to be easily the strongest community
Yeah. True.
within Europe and within the world at that time, right? Like, and still is to this day. I think it can be a bit fractured at times in Poland. They have a lot of stores, a lot of cities, a lot of communities that are all really strong. But when they all come together and play in War Factory, I don't think that there is um, a single country anywhere else that can kind of match that player count. Not, the American like Las Vegas Open, nowhere near it, or
Mm.
their own nationals, nowhere near it. The French community has been solid, and played like 100-player events, etc. But I really don't think that anybody's going to reach that 200 mark again, other than Poland in the near future. So, like it's there. It's an amazing event. It was really huge, but I really felt that it was Polish nationals with some extra, with some extra, like caveats added on. It was given more precedent. It like had these extra prizes. It had this title of Realms of Battle, but to me, it wasn't an international event. It was just Polish nationals. So I got in my mind that I wanted to run this event, which was truly international, and that what we had to begin with was getting in the first people through the door. I was not interested in how many people would get to the event. I'd actually, I right from the start, I was very adamant that I would rather have run a 64 player event where 56 of them, 50 or 60 of them were international, than a 100 200 player event and 90% of them are just UK players, right? Like what I was looking to achieve was player quality and like player diversity through the door. And so that's what I really felt encapsulated this invitational idea, and this idea that it is like a European championship, a world championship, that it is a tournament of champions. And like it really came together. So like it just in those first days, as soon as I had the venue, what I decided was I was just going to individually berate these people, like, hey, I've got this idea, please come. Like I look, scrolled through like so many past tournaments, looking for champions, looking for all these big names, going through the top ranked players at the time. Of course, they change all the time. So there are times when I invited somebody because they were in the top 10 and they've fallen out of the top 10 over the year and a half since I first started inviting players, right? Like so it's comes and goes. There's a little bit of luck involved about whether or not I'm currently inviting players when you're currently high ranked, or if I happen to notice your event based on its size and stuff like that. But all I can say is I've done my absolute best to try and be fair and invite as many people as possible, and really bring together as many people as possible.
Yeah, I don't think anybody doubts that. I mean, looking at the list of
Yeah.
participants, it's quite amazing. I must admit, and maybe that's just my absolute ignorance. I was surprised there's obviously an Indian community because somebody from India is
True.
participating. So that's crazy. That's awesome. Like stuff you didn't
Yeah, I mean,
know.
he actually he reached out to me. I did while it was 100% invite based, I did also put out like some open calls to like, look, if you're from a smaller community, that I might not have noticed, if you've won an event which you think is nationals, but like I might not have picked up on it, please let me know. If you wanna just tell me that I play in a group of 7 people and I win all the time, but I'd really love to go to your international event. Then I heard all of those like kind of like requests, and I tried to accommodate as many as possible. And when he reached out, and he said to me, look, I'm the #1 rated player who uses the site on India, and I was like, absolutely, I would absolutely love your participation, right? So yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Coming to that, so how's been the response of the wider community? So obviously everybody who's participating is all in. I mean, some of them are traveling quite a bit of a distance, but like the wider community, have you heard any responses? What's the reaction there?
I would say it's actually been relatively quiet. I'm not 100%. I'm nowhere near as like plugged into the community as I used to be. Of course, I don't really do Tony Ground anymore. It's been a long time since doing that, so I haven't really seen the response from those players. But of course, people who interact with online content, or like used to turn up for Tony Ground on the regular on a Monday, are probably players who ended up invited and are like directly linked anyway. Just because those who are that actively involved in the game, inevitably kind of end up as part of the community through those various means. I actually, it's an interesting question that I kind of have myself. I don't quite know what its perception is. I hope that that this and lots of other content that's being done around the community will help to have it shared. And it's really important to me that it's like shared in the right light. Uh, I don't get the criticism anywhere near as much now as in the past, but I think that people you guys are already aware that there's so many different criticisms that I might be about to talk about, but people often infer the way like I talk about competitive gaming and the way that I talk about like rankings and winners to be to be different to the way I mean it, right? And I've always had like such a big focus on trying to um make sure that every aspect of tournament play, I actually much prefer to call them events,
Hmm.
because I think the tournament has this, slightly different kind of attitude and kind of like attention to it. So every aspect of event play is all about celebrating the game, not just like celebrating win at all costs mentality. Celebrate, it's not about celebrating bringing the cheesiest, nastiest list possible and just stomping other players with like whatever the broken meta is right now. I I'm really pleased. Actually, the one specific legacy which I think that the LGT has had and
Hmm.
I'm most pleased about is I'm relatively sure that we were the first, if not the first ones to do it on a big scale. Is that myself and Chris Eustace had this idea many years ago that to help promote variety of lists, variety of factions, and to make sure that everybody has something to play for at all times, was when we came up with the idea and concept of best in faction. We came up with that, and that we wanted that to be a really important prize. To me, it's more important to be the best player playing your faction than it is to be the second best player playing the faction which everybody's winning with, right? Like if
Right.
you're playing faction one and faction one comes first, second, and third, then coming second and third is not as to be rewarded as the person who actually came fourth, but they used this totally different faction and they were by far the best with it. They back in the day in the LGT, obviously neutrals has always like had a lot of attention on it around this fact that everybody knew neutrals was not fully competitive with the other
Yeah.
factions. But there have been a long-standing kind of legacy of players who play exceptionally well and
Yeah.
and they finish high in these tournaments, but never win, right? Like nobody would really expect them when it comes to the crunch time to go 6-0, 7-0, but they're there going 6-1, 5-1 in Swiss pairing or something like that. And they're coming fourth or fifth or sixth with a faction which is wildly underrepresented.
Right.
And the next best neutral player is coming 50th or 60th in the tournament, and they're there in the top five. Then that is such a thing to be celebrated and rewarded, because that's such an expression of skill and an expression of your dedication to the faction and an expression of like how good you are like at the game and playing it, beyond just picking what will make you win. You're not there to give yourself absolutely every edge possible, because if you were, you wouldn't be playing that faction. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
I think that it's really important to me that we communicate that aspect and show all the other aspects of it around the tournament. And I hope that that's the side that the community will pick up on, the wider community who aren't there, because I think that it's been so well kind of like communicated and enjoyed at the events by the people who attend. But in the past, people talk about how like like, oh, like it's just a tournament for these players, or like they
Yeah.
just care about the winners, or all these kind of things. And to me, it's so important that everybody comes away with that the whole like event experience is actually really to be championed, and that players of every type should be attending events, in my opinion. Players who've never attended an event should, like, it should be that flat out, like, that you should go and meet other people who love the game and
Yeah.
play the game the way you do.
Mm. And in terms of the response of the community, I mean, I'm not talking about the wider community because that's not our viewership, I guess. But I mean, you guys watching this right now, maybe, yeah, give us your reaction, your thoughts on this. What do you think about this event? And are you sad you missed out? So no, don't. But let us know what you think about it. That might be a good, option to get them some feedback there.
Yep, exactly. Well, and you just spoke about lists and picks and stuff like that. Actually, I'm curious if you had the chance to play yourself in an event like that, what would you actually play and what would you pick? I heard you. Do you actually like play song a lot nowadays? Like, do you get a game in here and there?
No,
Oh,
I am really far removed from the game. By far the most that I have been. I yeah, I mean it's crazy to say I haven't played a game of Song in over a year, and
oh
and
wow.
so basically so to go back on that history lesson, like I played UK nationals, um, I. I won UK nationals more than winning. I'll stroke my own ego for a second. I was really pleased that basically I'd actually set myself this goal that I would go to this Scottish GT, this Welsh GT, and this Northern GT, and then the UK Nationals. And I set myself a goal at the start of the year that I would win them all. And then once I started winning the first one, I decided actually what I was going to do was I was going to win them all, and I was going to win them all with different factions.
Mm.
So when I managed to achieve that in September, and I mean it was not easy. Like I tell you, like especially come the LGT, I got kind of sick on the Saturday night. I was like on the Sunday I was sweating. I think there's still footage from Rotterdam White Scars. They were filming filming it, and they kept doing these post game interviews. I'm like covered in sweat, and I don't take the game that seriously, guys. I was actually sort of half dying at the time, but yeah, it got incredibly close. I played some games, and guys, I get so lucky. Like honestly, like when the dice,
Wow.
everybody knows that when it needs to come up clutch, like I'll roll a 6 for that charge. I just for some reason, if you just believe in the heart of the cards, blue eyes always comes up. So
Nice.
so yeah, it was. I really, honestly, I got to the end of it, and I just thought, I don't think I could ever do that again. Like it was such a weird experience. Like I'd kind of set myself to these goals, which I just didn't think that I could do. And then when I did them, and then like I couldn't take the next step and play in the realms of battle. That kind of was taken away from me. I was like left with this big gulf of like,
Hmm.
what now? Like I kind of didn't want to go back to just playing casual games, even though these same opponents that I play with in the club, they're the same players that I play on the top table of tournaments. It's nothing about that. It was just like I was just like, "Oh, I won't be able to achieve that again.
Mm.
I've done everything I can, so I'm going to take a break, and a break, just a short break, a few month break, a break till next season. Suddenly it became like I hadn't played in 6 months, and then it became I hadn't played in
Hmm.
12 months, and then I was just focusing on running events again instead of playing in events. And yeah, like the tabletop space is so fickle for me and my community. Once people move on to having a new thing, and are excited about something new, it's so hard to bring people back. And at the moment, for me and my gaming club and my community, I've basically not played in a really long time. And so we'll see. I'm not like done with the game. I didn't have any problems with the game at all. That was never my issue. I actually, like, I'm kind of really sorry, because I really think the game is in an incredibly balanced state right now.
Yeah.
I think that the spread of factions that can win, the spread of factions that are winning big events, the different variety of lists that we're seeing, that they seem to have finally managed to solve, like activation count, like all these things are so many good reasons to play the game. But I haven't managed to like push myself over
Mhm.
over that hurdle of like getting that first game in again. Some of my local players will be playing in the Invitational. Of course, when I say local players, of course, I am talking about like Mickey Maserath, like, and who does still play only online, as far as I believe he still plays very regularly, but only online. He never plays in the games club. We play totally different games in the games club. So you know, um, these are still active players, and I'm sure once I see people playing at the Invitational, I'm sure I'll play the game again. I haven't quit the game, but at the same time, it's weird to say I haven't played the game in a year and a half,
Mm.
which other people would say that sounds like you quit the game. But yeah, I'm so actively involved in the community over all that time. I'm still hopefully very aware of the rules, because I will be TO and judging. Um, but yeah,
No,
so
for
Yeah,
sure.
as to your question, after all of that, what would I play? With such a long hiatus, I would definitely go back to Lannisters, which
I
have
knew it.
always been my strongest and my longest love. They were the first faction I played, and I just am a counterplot Lannister at heart.
Ah,
Yeah, I think that Lannisters have always been my go-to, and I have a soft spot for like a crossbow gun line, so I'm sure something like that would come in. But yeah, I think I'd have to find out. I think the last thing I really played at the LGT was a Gregor list,
hmm.
and back when Kevin could still shoot with crossbows.
All right. Yeah.
Yes, that many editions ago. Yes,
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
don't blame me, guys. Within a certain faction, I'm still playing the power lists, right? I'm not I'm not here. I'm not all here for the fluff and the memes.
Yeah. But I mean, the two crossbows list is still viable. I think we saw that in the German championship last year
Yeah, yeah,
at
Yep.
the basically final table. That was yeah, playing for for the first place. Didn't win, but yeah, got
yeah.
very far. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not quite willing to put my money where my mouth is, but like I don't think that the game has changed wildly in the past year and a half, right? Like I still think that the fundamentals of this game, like the fundamentals of this game are so rock solid,
Mm.
and the fundamentals of activation timing, of like non-overcommitting, of positioning of units, they require you to maybe sharpen up and practice over a few games. But I think that when you really understand this game at a core level, like you understand it. And unless a huge revolutionary change comes, a huge new change to the way panic is done or the way movement is done, or like basically a 2.0 version of this game, the
Mm.
only thing that you really need to be playing once you understand all those concepts is a little bit of practice and rock solid knowledge of all the different matchups and how they matter for you, right? So I would be so out of my depth with Brotherhood Without Banners. I've never played against them. I haven't even read their tactics cards fully. I wouldn't know what to predict and what to expect. But outside of that, I think that the game hasn't changed wildly, and it's still got those same great roots. And all that happens is some slight twisting of the dials here and there in terms of the various strength of the units and how those matchups play out. And right now, I think that all those dials have been dialed in really, really well. With possibly Brotherhood, it's slightly, they come in and they're a little bit high at the moment. But by comparison to the history, we talked about like the length of this game's been going on. There have been such wild outliers at times
Yeah.
that really put me off. The competitive scene. When we saw the dominance of Mance, before the
Yeah.
dominance of Mance, we saw the absolute dominance of Othel Yarwick Commando within
Exactly.
within Night's Watch Crossbows. There was also Mother of Dragons for a while, absolutely wildly dominant. And even going right back to the earliest days, like let's not look back with like rose tinted goggles. Once upon a time, basically it was play Starks and 11 activations,
Yep.
or don't bother, right? Like on a
Don't remind me
competitive,
about that. Oh my
yeah,
God.
in a competitive
Ah,
sense, the balance was so out of whack back
that
then.
was
Like
horrible.
to think that you could
Yeah.
buy, a 2-point attachment and it came with a free direwolf activation,
Oh yeah.
and basically the only commanders worth using were all NCU commanders, of course. Don't forget that.
Exactly.
Like NCU commanders used to be a free activation that didn't cost anything. It was wild times. It was the Wild West. But so by comparison to that, there are so many things going for this game right now. That it's a shame that like I don't quite have I don't have the same time actually is one of the things, and I just I don't have a goal in the same way to like keep pushing for. And going back to that question, like why did I come up with the idea of the invitational? I wanted to give that goal to other players. I'd reached this journey and I'd gotten to this point, and I was like, there's nothing else. There's nothing above this. There's no more that I can do. There's no more that I can play. I've achieved my goals. What do I do now? And I was like, okay, so I'll give the community this bigger and better and this overarching thing that they can aim for, and that will like keep everybody striving forward to play these bigger events and kind of go out there and meet other players.
Mm. So that's awesome. But one question I have: if you were a betting man, who do you think will win the event? Like, who would you put your
Do you
money
have
on?
like a favorite?
Yeah. I mean, I got asked this actually by somebody the other day. I I hate to admit that I think the safest money is on Mickey. everybody
Oh,
everybody knows that I never actually want Mickey to win. I always yeah, he's I have some really interesting thoughts, which are so Leon, big guy, Cruellian,
mhm.
whatever
Mm.
Yeah,
many different names he goes by. He was he has and been the longest standing number one player for a while, but I've never seen him play, right? So he's a huge question mark for me about, like, because there are a ton of other players who are in there in like the top 10, or will be these 8 top seeded players. Um, but a whole number of them I've interacted with before. I've played against. Obviously, I played against Mickey many times. But
yeah.
I played against Mikhail before. He pasted me, by the way.
He's really good.
And
He's really good.
yeah. Mikhail has been flying the flag for Greyjoys for such a long time, especially when Greyjoys were bad, and he was playing them, and he was playing them
Yeah,
incredibly
right.
well. And I think that things like that really molds you into like such a fundamentally strong player who fundamentally understands the faction. If you can play them through the bad times when they then come good, that's really when you start to shine. I mean, of course, Larks has been around for such a long time, and there are all these names that I'm like aware of, and I think I know how they fit in with each other. But Leon, I've never particularly seen on the table. I've never interacted with him, but his online results speak for themselves, right? Like, he has such pedigree against the top players. I'm in no way questioning whether or not his ranking is real. Uh, uh, Here's an interesting point, though, and I might be throwing question marks over the rankings themselves, but I think that online play and event play can be quite different.
Oh
And
yeah,
like, specifically, I think single match play. So say, I don't think that TTS is wildly different than playing on the table,
Mm.
but I do think that playing one match in an evening on TTS is very different than playing
Yeah.
7 games across 2 days.
exactly.
And I think that, that's why I think that, like, there's a lot of value to be given to players who've won big 7-round events before, because you've shown that you have the stamina and like the focus and the practice
Yeah.
to go right across 7 games. I think
So
that there's go on.
Leon's the reigning German champion. So
Yeah,
if you want to watch some games of his, I mean, they are commented in
There you
German,
go.
but you can watch them on our channel.
shameless self-advertising.
Because
Yeah.
we were live streaming at that time. But yeah, he can go the distance. That was
Yeah.
and he was
He's
so,
really good.
like, when I talked to him afterwards, he was like, "Oh, I was so excited." And it was just like, yeah, he didn't look like that.
Yeah, he
He
was like
was
a
just,
robot, like a
yeah,
machine.
felt like he's in that
Yeah.
zone.
Yeah.
No matter what happened on the table, like, really stuff where you thought, okay, that can't be great, but he just, yeah, just kept focused on his play. And it's just, I think he's a very strong player, and I think him and Larks, I think they played a couple of times. They obviously didn't play
Mm,
in that event, or I don't know if they played in any event yet. But I guess it's like a coin toss who's winning at any given day.
Mm.
So
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I think honestly it's crazy, Mickey was world number 1 for a significant period of time. Mikhail was world number 1 for such a long period of time. I think he was the world number 1 for the longest. I
Yeah.
think he might have been world number 1 for 2 years straight or something. Larks before him, world number 1. Leon, he either currently is the world number 1, or actually I think he just recently lost a game. And
yeah,
when you are the world number 1 and you have such a high rating, every single loss is like a
Yeah.
huge drop. So I think he actually just recently lost it, but throughout the year and a half that the Invitational has been getting put together, he's been world number 1 for such a large period of that. So the rankings say all those things. the past tournament winners say loads of things. Mikel has such quality on Spanish soil. He dominates the local Spanish community, but I've not seen him put it together like internationally yet. And he attempts, you know, I played him at French nationals. You know, they've traveled, and the Spanish community is strong. It's not to say that they can't compete off you know, outside of their own borders, but actually I think that it's a really interesting thing on top, which is some players, when they travel, they become distracted by where they are. You know, they're out of their comfort zone. They're not, you know, that when you stay in your own bed versus sleeping in a hotel, that's a whole different experience, and all these different things, right? Like, you know, I know that I found it way more difficult to play in the US than I did to play in the UK, partly because I was just like in holiday mode. I wasn't really focused on the game. I was at this huge convention. It was so much more chaotic than every event that I'd been into the UK. Like I had no idea what was going on. I was so confused. Like nobody knew what the matchups were, the pairings were. I was like, what is going? Like I was so thrown off by the whole experience that like I couldn't focus on the games. So you know, I tried to take into consideration all of these things, and knowing all of those things, I think when you think about like slight home field advantage, like all the length of time that he's been playing for, I would have to put my smart money on Mickey. But like I say, I would love somebody else to win. I would. Yeah, I'd be very happy for a German to win. You know, yeah.
Oh wow! Okay, you heard it.
Yeah. I'd love Leon to show why he's been number one, or I'd love Larks to make a comeback.
Yeah.
I feel like it's been a while since he was taking the game at that quite that level of seriousness that he was playing at like quite some years ago. I think, you know, he's been focused on the broader community and the content creation and all those things. Like they all distract from this pure focus of being just a player, which is like, as I said, like when I focused on these GTs, I put everything into them. I couldn't be a TO. I couldn't run the event and play in the event. You know, like I had to focus on like the game and trying to play and win the game. And I think that it's going to be so intense that there's never been an event where you'll have to go through so many high quality players across those 7 games. In most tournaments, right? Like I would expect across 6 or 7 games, 3 or 4 of them will be players who are just nowhere near as experienced as I am at the game. They'll be playing, a couple of them will be playing completely non-competitive lists. They won't necessarily, they will never in a million years think that they're there to win the event. Some of them are just there to really happy to enjoy the event, and they're wonderful games, right? But they're at least a few gimmies each day. I don't get so mentally drained. I don't get like, you know, I can really focus down onto a few games that are going to make or break this tournament. But I think that 6 or 7 out of 7 games in this event are just going to be play your absolute best, bring your absolute A game, or that's it. Your tournament's done, because with 100 players across 7 rounds, it's wildly unlikely, unless something really weird happens with Swiss, you will have to win 7 games out of 7 to be crowned the champion of this tournament.
True.
Mm.
Yeah, true.
I guess Ilya and I are there to give somebody a mental break.
Yeah, exactly. We had a
I mean, like,
relief.
not a breakdown, like, you know, a little bit of a respite.
I think so many
just...
players. I think so many players in the content creator sphere, they underplay like the deep knowledge and the tactical proficiency that they have, and how the average player in this event, even if you consider yourselves to be average players in this event, right? Like as opposed to players who are looking to be top 8, the average player in this event would be a top 5 finisher in most other events, right? Like when you look at the average rating, something we didn't talk about, like the average rating of this event is like about 150 higher than the average rating of any other large tournament there's ever been, right? Like it's not the biggest player count wise, but in terms of like player count versus player quality, it's so wildly you know, higher than anything before. the only other things that have ever like had that kind of player quality have been like 16-player tournaments, which are specific online event tournaments, or the side invitationals that
Right.
I ran in the past, where I picked the 8 best players from the entire
Yeah.
100-player playing field and said, look, you can just play on the Friday event together. Their average player count is the same as the average player account across 104 people now, right? So I think that the average player in this event, player who comes mid-table, can be incredibly proud that they're mid-table in amongst like at least 50, if not 100 of the best players of like this game has produced.
Do you have a prize for the last place?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, okay, fine. Okay,
As,
wonderful. That's fine.
as long as you play all
Please.
7 games, we do not reward those who go home early.
No
Like as long as you
dropouts.
play 7
Done,
games to completion, yes,
Cool, I'm covered.
yes, we ever
Nice.
would. Yeah, exactly. There you go.
Um,
I mean, it's worth saying, that everybody will leave home with something. Thanks to
that's
like
great.
we'll I'm sure we'll talk about like various kind of support that the event had, but
Mm.
like thanks to numerous different support and the kind of things that I put together before I knew that certain amounts of support would come in, have meant that like effectively we're way overcated for kind of like things to give away, because at a time there was a period relatively recently that I thought like nothing was going to be able to come through and that everything would have to be provided, and then suddenly various different support like kind of manifested right at the last minute. So there'll be tons of things to give to every single entrant, as well as these prizes for all
Okay.
these different aspects of playing the game and trying to reward every aspect of the hobby. But just turning up and being here, I think is really, really important, to reward those who've traveled so far and paid for a ticket
That's cool.
and given their time. Like I want everybody to be able to walk away with something to remember the event by.
So speaking of the support, maybe this is a little bit more of a spicy topic. We talked about it before we started the recording, right? So on top of all the sponsors, who are providing, all the goodies and stuff for the event, of course, we need to talk a little bit about Simon. So I think those of you who have watched stats in the past and tourney ground and stuff like know there's a little bit of a tension going on between stats and Simon, let's put it this way. So how is the relationship now to Simon from your side? How do you think they are looking, onto the event? Do they acknowledge the event? Was there any kind of communication between you and Simon? Like, go ahead, speak of your mind. No.
Yeah. So I from very early I tried to communicate with Simon, because I think that so for me I want, and I hope that the community do perceive this to be the world championship. As
Mhm.
far as I'm concerned, it's the closest we've come to it, right? Like the best title I can give it is that it's the A Song of Ice and Fire Stats World Championship, and the winner will be crowned the
Fair.
A Song of Ice and Fire Stats World Champion. Whether or not the community agree that that person is the world champion, and whether or not they feel aggrieved that they didn't get to turn up and compete to be world champion, is all things that we will discuss in the post, and if its legacy continues on into the future, and if somebody else kind of like runs with the format in future years, then maybe it can be improved on. But to me anyway, I from very early thought that it would be obviously such a huge endorsement if I could get Simon to either at least call it Realms of Battle, at
Yeah.
least elevate it to that same kind of stature and name, or for them to like communicate with me and say, look, yes, like I mean, don't forget, what was it? Was it 2003, 2002? They announced that they would be running a world championship. I mean, it's many years in the
Yeah,
past now, but they
that
released the
happened.
full official article and document saying you can expect new things from organized play. There will be a world championship. There will be this, but we're 3-4 years removed from that now at this point, um, and like I think it's time to accept that like that's not going to come from them. At least it's definitely not happening in 2025, as far as I'm aware. So like this is the closest thing we'll get this year, whether or not it suddenly appears out of nowhere in 2026. without throwing too much shade, you know, they do have a track record of whenever I try to run something, they suddenly get their act together and decide that they'll run it themselves. So you know what I mean? Like sometimes, so I thought the worst that can possibly happen is they turn around and say, no, we're running a world championship. In which case, I'd say, brilliant. All I wanted was for the community to have a world championship, right? Like I don't care hugely whether or not you know, it's perceived as the official championship or not. So anyway, I reached out from super early, but unfortunately, like they are very adamant and they seem very hard line on the fact that they are unable to support organized play inside of the UK in the same way that they support it inside of the rest of Europe and across North America and across the world. You know, they obviously have things that they run inside of Asia, which is, you know, headquarters for them. So that gets some attention. And North America is obviously really big area for them. And then War Factory have proved that like there is such a large and strong community inside of Europe that it requires this attention. But as far as I, you know, like I don't know the details. As far as I know, there is some kind of contractual block between the fact that like organized play is under the remit of Asmodee UK inside of the UK, and Simon cannot support and cannot get involved with and cannot like interfere with organized play inside of the UK. And so, you know, at the same time I was reaching out to Asmodee UK for a long time, you know, asking like whether or not they can then elevate it to these levels. If the UK, if Simon can't endorse an event as Realms of Battle in the UK, then surely Asmodee UK could, you know, but unfortunately those lines of communication are difficult at the best of times. I'm sure everybody who's ever tried to, you know, get support from Simon for their content.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So you know, like so all of that mostly came to naught. We'll come slightly to the good news and the rescue in a minute, but unfortunately, you know, like none of those channels managed to come to fruition, despite, you know, me trying for about a year and a half. So you know, I think the time scale was not the issue, but I never take these as personal reasons why they're not supported. You know, I don't think that it's me and my content and my events which are being targeted as to why these things can't happen. I think that it's a UK based problem, and I know that so many other TOs in the UK have had these issues, and you know, I know that a lot of content creators who have really big followings and like have really supplied a lot to the community in the past that have also had, you know, a lot of problems with getting any communication and any kind of you know, official partnership on things like this. I think that they're improving on it, but I think that there are just political reasons or, you know, like contractual reasons and all these kind of problems why the UK is not the best place to be able to run these events from. There are barriers which seem from my side to be insurmountable. I've not managed to be able to get over that barrier, no matter how long I tried and like kind of like how many people I know or speak to. You know, I've been able to communicate with. I know so many people in the community who, you know, say, "Oh yeah, I could help you get in contact with so and so." It's not those problems. Yeah, there seems to be a much more kind of defined problem which we can't get past. So that's one of the reasons why that's one of the reasons that pushed me over the edge in terms of I will not like try and run more more invitationals after this one, right? Like,
okay,
I'm so pleased at how this one turned out, but I think that the UK and therefore events that I run will not be able to get over this barrier long term, and so it's much better for these to be run in countries where they will gain this support. And so, yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why it will be for me. This is like, hey guys, this is how I think this brilliant event should run. But you know, like it's time for it to be run in a different country by a different group. You know, so we'll see what happens there. You know, I think I've spoken to people there are possibly some plans for it to happen in 2027. You know, but I don't think that it will run in 2026 right now. But I am also well of the opinion that you will not get this level of international participation, particularly like North American participation, on an annual basis. You're actually much better
Yeah.
looking 2 years ahead, and you need to give people that kind of time to plan and kind of like make such a big trip. So Simon, we're not able to support, and to this day, I still don't believe that there will be, it won't be recognized as anything official. And
That's a bummer.
who knows about those random posts? It's God, it's such a weird thing that like honestly like a 16 player tournament down the road from me can get a post on the official Simon page which says, hey, there's this event running like normally like 2 days in advance, like this event running in 2 days, why don't you go? And I'm like, well, for a start, that's too short notice for everybody. Why are you posting? Like, that's pointless. But also, like, I'm like, the stats site shows there's 20 plus tournaments run every single weekend. Like, why aren't you shouting about like all the amazing like participation that this game has and how active the community is and how wonderful the community is? Why are you not shouting that from the rooftops, telling people how many people constantly play your game? You know, even if stats were 100% of everybody use stats, and obviously it's not, like, nowhere near. There are thousands of games played every single week. You should be like shouting about it and telling everybody how active your community is. Because as I say, like tabletop games, it's such a competitive space for people's time and energy and money.
Exactly.
They want to be convinced. They want to be convinced that it's worth committing those things. And if you can just ease that barrier by like saying like, hey, look, loads of other people play, by the way, it's really great. Anyway. So
Yeah.
I don't expect any post, but who knows? You never know. It's kind of the
I
Wild
mean,
West
they
out there.
did that for one of the London GTs, right? I think there was a post back then, which I was like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Uh,
I think in
I vaguely
20.
remember that. I think, yeah.
Yeah, I maybe yes. I
Yeah.
definitely one of a tournament that I have run has definitely been like given a post and given an endorsement. So again, it's not a we won't endorse things that Carlo does because of things that he said, or do you know what I mean, or like his association with that toxic meme channel. Um, so I don't take any of these things personally. Like once upon a time, I maybe did. I thought that I was being personally attacked, but like over the long passages of time, I realized that like these are problems that everybody has. This is more of a like community game wide issue that they're maybe making progress on. They're definitely making progress. Whether or not they're going to get there fast enough to like keep those who have been around since the start. There's only so much energy that people can give before they don't get anything back and they decide, hey, like that's enough for me. And if you think about the list of all the people who've given so much to the game and are no longer here, and
Yeah.
and you just those people definitely would have stayed longer if there'd been official channels by which they could gain recognition and gain kind of like communication. But I'd gotten to the point where I just decided nothing was coming. Like, and I was disappointed by that, because what I really, really think is super valuable is being able to give things out at the event that like is official product but is not retail available. I do think that is really a sought after thing. And I think that anybody who remembers the heyday of Fantasy Flight Games running stuff before they passed
Yeah.
on most of their things to Atomic Mass Games, like they were super hot on X-Wing and things like that. Having regional champion dice and having like alternate cards and having those things, and to me
Exactly.
the non-retail available Rainier and Alicent and the alt sculpt Vargo and the Jamie and Rob and all of those things, right? Like they hit that mark so perfectly, right? And along with the non-retail available game night kits, which I think were great. Like I don't know why they're not such a like a regular and powerful thing that we use. I think maybe more are coming down the pipeline. But things like the plastic rulers and dice bags for every faction, like we're here, 7 years later,
Yeah.
and we still haven't managed to get round to releasing more than Lannister, Stark, Night's Watch and Free Folk, which are super common because they
Yep.
were released in Game Night Kit 1 or whatever. Neutrals, sorry, as well as Lannisters and Starks. They were like part of the Kickstarter, so they are possibly long gone as Kickstarter exclusives, which maybe they'll never release. And then we had this pair of Night's Watch and Free Folk, which I have like 7 of or something like that because every event that I went to gave them away.
Yeah,
Maybe
true.
they were slightly too common for a while, but the problem was that they were the only game night kit that you could get for such a long period. As far as I know, there's a Greyjoy
There's a Greyjoy
game
one
night
out there as
kit.
well.
There's
Yeah,
a
that's
game
true.
one. Yeah, there's a Greyjoy one. But anyway, what there was available at US Nationals is these dice bags and rulers for the factions that aren't released, because I believe they're coming down the pipeline in future. There's also these tactics zones. That's the word I'm looking for. Tactic
Take it.
zones that are specific to each faction, and they're the kind of things that I think like absolutely elevate and reward players for attending the event. It's not in-game power, of course. You never give that away. It's not. It's not like of huge value. But what it is it's difficult to obtain, and you give it away to players who are the most active players and champions, and those who are willing to champion your game in their community and go to these events and travel to play this game. So I think that's a wonderful reward, and was the kind of things that I was looking for that only CMON can provide. So super long story short, as always with me when I get talking. I'm really pleased to be able to say that Jim Ludwig of Dark Sword, who is the actual ultimate license owner, he was able to step in the absence and the absolute hard line that CMON cannot support UK events. He stepped in and sent some of his own personal available stock to me, so
Oh wow, that's so cool.
we will have these things to give away, which I think is so important. Like I've worked on us having individual unique things to the Invitational for you to take away and remember, and everyone will have something from that. But for you to have something official for the game as well, I think is such an important part for you to be rewarded for being a player of the game, rewarded for being interested and active enough in the game, not just a purchaser of the game. And so yeah, I'm really pleased that we'll have like an overabundance of prizes come the end of the day, because I'd prepared for not having this support, and then the support did come through.
That's
Awesome.
awesome. Yeah,
That's
that's
really
really
good.
cool. That's also like quite generous from Jim Ludwig to just step
Oh yeah.
in that way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, really generous. He even, he sent the postage out of his own pocket and all these things. He had to. I mean, of course, I'm kind of, I'm putting a big. It hasn't arrived yet. I have tracking. It's
Oh, okay.
currently, there's a box. It's currently, in I believe Chicago Airport, and it's supposed to fly to me. But I mean,
Fingers crossed, everything
yeah,
worked out. Everything.
yeah, like all I can say is that at the very least the thought is there. The attempt is there, and I can't thank them enough for even trying. I obviously believe it's going to be here, otherwise I wouldn't be talking about it and telling people. But it hasn't arrived yet, so it may still be a bit of a disaster. But luckily, I prepared for there to be no support, so there will still be things to give out, even if
Yeah.
not.
Yeah, man, fantastic. It sounds like it's going to be an awesome event. I am so excited to be able to travel. Actually, I wasn't quite sure it would work out. I'm so glad it will work out. I'll be there, meet everybody. So yeah, absolutely cool. And thank you for putting this together.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, we talked a lot about the event, and this is the purpose of this video, but we would be remiss to not at least just ask about the current state of Song of Ice and Fire stats. I mean, the community follow this, I think, quite closely. They know you announced, okay, I'm going to shut this down, and then I guess
Hmm.
Rossi just flew over with a coffer full of money and convinced you to
Yeah,
reconsider.
yeah,
So
yeah.
was that what happened, or can you fill us in on
Um,
this? Just a little glimpse on
yeah, of
what
course.
happened there.
Yeah, so I mean, I was So, I mean, when I announced in early January that like the site would close, like I had known in my mind that that was like actually a decision I'd made in late September or something, you know, like, or at least in October. I'd known for months, and and had sort of been, you know, just eking along. Like the site was like creaking at the, you know, in terms of development, it was like absolutely creaking at the seams. And I was just like, it just has to get to the Invitational. It just like, you know, and they all just seem to like, you know, align. All these things seem to align that like, you know, it was the right time. Um, and like kind of my heart and my effort and my like hours of the day, like they just weren't there for doing it anymore. Um, and so I knew that I needed to let it go. And then as soon as I announced it, and like I say, I had actually sat with this decision. You know, I kind of made the decision one day. I was probably in a bad mood. I was like, you know, I'm forget this. I'm not doing it anymore. Like, do you know what I mean? Like I like so something wouldn't work on the website and I couldn't fix the code. And I was like, why am I doing this? Forget this. You know, I decided to sleep on it. Day later, I was like, that was a good decision. Like, you know, a week later, I was like, that's still a good decision. Like, I still feel good about this. A month later, I'm like, I definitely still think this is a good decision. Of course, as soon as I made the announcement, and you know, like genuinely like 100 plus more people all were like messaging me, you know, either just saying thank you for the site, or like, oh my god, what can we do to save it, or you know, like all the, you know, suddenly a flood of people were interested in supporting it or carrying it on or doing all these things, which, you know, is kind of classic in that, you know, obviously it gave me these things like, oh, is this a terrible decision? Like, you know, like, should I change my mind? Should I just carry on? But of course, like, you know, I've been running the site for 5 years, and it's funny that like when I asked for like people to support the site, it's very limited like response, you know, like very limited kind of like level of support. And the support that I did get, I'm so thankful for. You know, the patrons of the site, who are the only reason why it still exists now, right? But of course, as soon as I said it was going to go away, people were coming out of the floodgates to say, oh, I want to do development on it, or oh my god, like I want to pay for it, or I want to do. I was like, where were you 6 months ago when like you know well, anyway, so I was like, was this a bad decision? And I started to, you know, receive conversations from loads of people who either wanted everything from me to just like give the site away, like in terms of like open source versus, you know, what financial support they could give versus what development support they could give. But realistically, the only people who like actually came with any kind of financial offer was Rossi. So, you know, without getting into too many details of it, like,
Yep.
and there's a more detailed hits and crits video which came out last week,
Yeah.
where they discuss a little bit about the long term, you know, the long term like support needed from hits and crits. Hits and crits
Yep.
are involved. Rossi brought them in to, you know, kind of do the community side of things, because I think that there are so many different facets, all of which I was, you know, holding up, but like not in any amazing way. This is the problem. Like, I didn't think that I was doing any of them justice. Like, I wasn't spending enough time on the development anymore. Obviously, the whole reason why I created the site was actually like because of my background and interest in the data side of things. But
Mhm.
like I had, but it's always the last thing, right? Like the site, in terms of its actual code, obviously takes the most important part, because if the site doesn't work, nobody will use it. And then there's a whole community side, trying to get people to support and join the Patreon, just even interacting with the community. Oh, my tournament's broken, or my this is this, or you know, I want this feature, or this button doesn't work. There's all those kind of things, right? Like, and I was trying to hold that side up, but like I've never been that interested in, you know, just being the customer support for the site. I've been so bad at that. Like, there's so many people who email me, and you know, I can only apologize, which is at best I respond like 3 weeks later. Sometimes some people's just get forgotten and never get replied to. Some people message me on Discord. So,
It happens.
you know, like there are all these different aspects, and I wasn't doing any of them well. And I never, at the end of every month, never would I have had any time to work on the actual cool new data ideas, making cool new graphs, or actually the core reason why the site should exist. So I was like, I'm just not the person to do all these things anymore. So anyway, Rossi will be doing development, and Hits and Crits will be like taking over the community side of things, and there'll be much more, many more people involved. And I think that they'll all do a great job and help the site get back to at least where it was. You know, like the site has been, you know, chugging along for a couple of years, but like it's a long time since I was really actively putting out there to community, telling the community about all the great things that it does already have, and interacting with them about new things that it could add. You know, it's funny, you know, kind of to think back, but I actually think that the best feature that we, you know, like talking about, unless I'm mistaking my dates, you know, I'm pretty sure that the most important feature that I think the site ever gave was the ability to import into TTS, which, you know, I actually think was developed by you, Sebastian, right?
Right.
Like, so
Yeah,
I
both
think
of us, right? I
that,
mean, you provided the API, and I, yeah, just use that
yeah.
to put it
So,
in.
you
We,
know,
yeah.
like, yeah. So, you know, obviously, you know, I assume that most people who watch this are well aware that Sebastian is, of course, like the original creator, founder, builder of the TTS mod, right? Like, obviously, it's now much more maintained by Leon Crewellian,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
open sourced a bit to the community, especially in terms of 3D printed models and stuff like that. It's such a community effort, right? But lest we not forget that, like, it was Sebastian's work in the early days that got us there. And I think that, and I never underestimate the fact that, like, the site only took off in the way it did in tandem with the community coming online during COVID to play TTS tournaments, right? Like, I think that that the site and TTS are so symbiotic these days.
Yeah,
As
but I
people
mean,
return,
the stats builder, I mean, is an awesome feature in and of itself, and I think it also helped improve the user experience of the mod, right? Because building your list
well,
in the mod
exactly, that's what I mean.
was
Like,
a bit of
I
a
think
pain, right? But being able to just import it, that made setup of a game so much quicker. I think it was like both, yeah, both help one another. I'm not sure if it's the,
Exactly.
yeah,
I think that relationship was so important to both. I think, you know, in those early days, I was really struggling to convince people of the value of stats, right? Like, and I had a lot of pushback from the community about, oh, I don't like this, or I don't do this, and there were problems with it, right? But I was still trying to sell this idea of what the site could become, right? Like, I was still like, hadn't yet convinced people that that like I'd built. People didn't believe that I could have built a ranking algorithm which was better, right, than like other stuff. People are still unconvinced that my ranking algorithm could possibly be good, but you know, that's a whole separate thing. Um, but like, I was convinced, I was still like at this point where I was trying to convince people that, like, if you got used to the site, it could streamline your experience of playing a game, not be this additional
yeah,
hindrance, right? Like,
yeah.
it's not something that weighs you down. You don't play a game and then you submit your results. As you're trying to play a game, it will help you streamline the process by which you get to the table. And we make that as fast as possible, and we make that as smooth as possible in the way it shares your lists with each other, and you select your list and all those kind of things. And so important for that was that I think the process of getting to start a TTS game needed to be streamlined, and that allowed the site to just like showcase, hey, look how we streamline this online process. Oh, it could also streamline your in-person process. And
Mm,
as we came out of TTS, people brought that online experience into the real world. As people came out of COVID lockdowns, as tournaments started to kind of grow and become bigger, they brought that experience with them. But I genuinely don't think that the site would have ever grown to the size, or possibly have made it through its first year of existence with me still continuing to push it and develop it, had it not been for that, like, relationship that it had with TTS. And
mm,
that, you know,
yeah,
I as a relatively reluctant TTS player knew that the process needed to be a bit easier for me to commit to it. And I thought, well, what do I want it to look like? I want it to just be a click of a button and it all just kind of comes in. So yeah, you know, they're the kind of innovations and like pairings which was super important to me in the early days, and what I wanted the site to achieve. and it's been such a long time since the site has innovated anything. You know,
Yeah.
like it's been weighed down under the maintenance and like just like the fact that a single person trying to run every single aspect of the site, the front end, the code, the back end code, trying to do seasonal updates, trying to keep the stats up to date, trying to change the builder, trying to maintain all these different aspects, and also sell it to the community, and run a YouTube channel, and run events, and attend events, and be a player, and all those things. And by the way, none of that makes any money or is entirely,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
all has to be done on top of you also having a family, a life, and a
Yeah.
job. And then you throw in like that tiny little like pebble that breaks the camel's back, which is not only does it not make money, but it's going to cost you money to do
Yes.
all that because less people are going to support it than the online fees cost every month, right? Like, and so that's why like this rescue by Rossi and this ongoing support by Hits and Crits, like they really seriously need to meet these financial goals because long term, like it can't just become a financial burden on these other people, right? Like it needs to be spread across the
Yeah,
community who
sure.
all want it to exist and
Yep.
all want to support it. It needs to be shouldered by the users, not by like an individual who just like wants it to exist, right? Like I was always willing to shoulder that it's not that significant a financial cost, but it's still there every month. I shouldered it for a long time because it was my dream. It was my website. Like it was everything I wanted it to be. Like and I was so pleased that the community had like taken it on board and grown with it and were supporting it at all that I was willing to shoulder that. But it's not their dream. It's not their like golden idea that they just wanted to see come to fruition. So obviously they would like the community to kind of like cover all those
Mm.
costs and things like that. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think I genuinely think that the site has a much stronger and brighter future than it did 6 months ago. Yeah, in my mind, 6 months ago, we were on a ticking clock. I just hadn't told everybody yet because I'm because I'm well aware what happens when Simon tell everybody, oh, by the way, there's a patch, but it's not going to happen till the future, right? Like I was well aware, and I already saw as soon as I announced that the site was closing down, the number of people signing tournaments up to the site in the future, the number of people submitting games, the number of people doing stuff suddenly started to go downhill, right? Because
Hmm.
nobody wants to be involved in something which is about to die, and it's the same with the game, and it's the same with the site, and it's the same with all these things that you want that social confirmation and you want that certainty and that knowledge that you're involved in something that's growing and is going to be really useful. And I think that that's what we have right now is we have really rock solid knowledge that it will grow and be supported long into the future, and it's no longer tied just to like my caring and my interest in the game.
Yeah. I mean, Chris and Larks from Hits and Crits put out a video over on their channel. You've mentioned that already. I'm going to link it down in the description. So if
Yeah.
you want to have a look at what their plans are, what they want to do, what they need to achieve, that they explain it over there. There was one question that I had after watching that video, and maybe you can fill us in on this. Previously, you mentioned that you've been working on this 2.0 version of the site for quite a long time, never managed to release it, and you felt like it actually needs to be released in order for anybody else to pick up the site and continue it because of the state that the site is currently in. So is that part of the plan? Is that going to happen or?
It's not 2.0 is distinctly not part of the release plan. Yes, I mean that is one of those like really, what made these conversations difficult, as it were. Like all these people wanted to either for me to launch what like currently exists, or for me to like share what I'd like done so far on 2.0, etc. As things stand, the site will not change in the short to medium term at all. Like this version 1 of the site, it will be maintained and continually developed by Rossi and or anybody that he and Hits and Crits decide to bring on board if they choose to do that. I will support that. it's particularly in the short-term transition, of course. uh, Date-wise, they will become the custodians of the site on April the 1st, and the Invitational will run until the 30th, and on top of that, season 6 will be released that very same weekend. So
Right.
so there is like also this coming together of all these dates. So there would I would definitely be relatively heavily involved in the early days for that transition. We've already discussed that I will almost definitely have to do season 6, or at least be be the major contributor
Mm.
to the changes for season 6, because as I say, like the code base is intimidating at best, right? Like, because intimidating would be a nice way for somebody to say it. The the more realistic term would be a shambles, a mess. It's not written to be a collaborative piece of code. It was written at 4 a.m. when
Yeah.
4 a.m. at the weekend when a new patch has just come out and some rules have changed. And I just want to get out as quickly as possible. I want the community to be able to play with it, and I want to get back on with doing something else. I want to
Yeah.
work on that feature which I've been working on, or all these different things. After
To
many
make it work
years of
until next week, right?
yeah,
It's
yeah,
just
yeah,
random.
exactly. Like,
It's
yeah,
just
to use the correct industry term, the technical debt
yeah.
of the project is huge. Like, it's literally 5 years of technical debt built upon technical debt built upon. When I first started it, I was not a very good developer, so there are a lot of things which are, even at their core, are kind of like wild. And then throw in some of the things it tries to tackle are actually really complicated data analytics, like on top of the coding aspect. So there are so many different aspects to it. We will see how Rossi gets on with it in the immediate term, and I'll support him. um Longer term, that will transition to either he's able to run that and do that all by himself, or he brings in some other people to work with him on that. But I think that one of the problems has always been that I'm not I don't play that well with others. I was very adamant for such a long time that like, I didn't want to become the project manager of the site, because that is just work, right? Like, that's
Yeah.
just work. That's not me even getting to code interesting things that I think are nice, or make a graph that I think would be cool. That's just me divvying out work for other people and then asking them why they hadn't done it. One of the things, like, as I became less attached to the site, and as I became overwhelmed with the different areas of the site, and as I got various offers over the years, a couple of times I did try to, like, test the waters and bring somebody in, and I gave them a little task to do, and I said, "Oh, just, yeah, if they were adamant, they really wanted to help build the site, they were a professional developer, they were this. I was like, "That's great. All right, why don't you just build this little thing for me?" And funnily enough, they just never did.
Mhm.
Like, they never came back to
Right.
me. They never finished it. They never did it. And I was like, well, I'm not going to chase you, because I won't spend my life chasing you for work. Like, because that's another hat that I'm wearing. Then I'm the developer, and I'm the project manager, and I'm the owner, CEO, and I'm the project owner, and I'm this, and I'm that, and like all these things. And it's like, how about I just keep it as, like, when I want to work on it, I'll work on it, and when I don't have time, then it'll have to kind of go to the side. But I think that it's got a much stronger future with other people. Um, but I mean, to answer your specific question, it's still the mess of a code base that is version 1. I possibly now have more time in the day to go back to version 2, and they will get it if it ever gets finished. But there is no requirement.
All
There
right.
is that is not part of the relationship we have.
Mm.
Um, we will see. We'll see. Given more time to think. Of course, I'm actually, like, overwhelmed by these thoughts and, like, kind of workload on the Invitational at the moment. So
Yeah, sure.
once that's gone, and, like, there isn't, and we manage this transition, and we manage season 6, we'll see what opens up, and if I suddenly feel like, hey, I have time in the day to work on things that cool new things again, then that might bring us around to version 2.
Yep, I mean, that would be cool. Keeping my
Yeah.
fingers crossed. And yeah, for anybody watching this and thinking, okay, I'd like to support that, I think Hits and Crits did put up a Ko-Fi campaign. I'll see if I find the link. I'll put it in here. But they also talk in the video about it. That's a great option. So consider.
Yeah. And
And
maybe to close down the video, now that you have mentioned the patch, just try to keep it short, but any wishes for the game from your side? I know you're not playing that much, but maybe you have something in mind that you would like to see.
No, yeah, I've said it for a long time. The one thing that I think that the game fails at is really bringing characters alive. So what I'd love is for like attachment and character centric design to
Yeah.
like really push forward. So be that in fluff or be that in competitive balance. Like if we bring the cost of all these attachments down, or bring all their abilities up, or we just create more reasons for you to bring flavorful character and attachment combinations, be it pushing of their affiliate keyword or all those different things. That is the design space that I have said for a really, really long time that I want them to push and explore. The game is wildly and incredibly balanced. It seems to have loads of factions that are playing really, really well and all these levels. But I still just don't see very many characters played, and I just think that is that's such an unfortunate part when it has such a deep lore and kind of such a strong fan base from that perspective.
Wonderful. You guys heard it. So we will see what the patch will bring end of this month. Thank you again, Carlo, for everything you have shared with us today. Thank you very much for all your support throughout the years and your dedication to the community. We really appreciate it, every one of us. And yeah, I'm looking forward, or we both are looking forward to shake hands finally with you in person, and in the Invitational, to meet you finally, face to face. And I think it's going to be a great time. So with that said, thank you very much, you all, for watching this video. Share it, visit our Discord, and of course, support Stats. So with that said, thank you and have a great day. See you around, guys. Bye bye.